So good to see you all. Well, I can say so good to see you because Bob can only see half of us, but at least he can see us, so that's good already. He's becoming, robot. He's putting robot eye like this. That's what AI, AI. That's the AI. That's what he's doing.
The
It's
other one is
working.
me.
It's working. It's working.
Exactly, it's working.
We also we also have in the Gampa Nick sitting over here.
Who is it?
Well, Nick.
Nick. Hi, Nick.
Hi.
I cannot say. Is the first time?
No.
No? I cannot see
No, but
Nick.
he doesn't come a lot. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, he doesn't come a
I
lot.
go in and out.
Okay, very good, Nick. Very, very good. You're coming to the very good because we are doing very nice teachings. We are doing what we call Lojong. That's what we're doing here this day. Mind training. We are training our minds. But we don't need to train our minds, right? We already have everything. No, not true. If we would really have it everything, we would not need to be here. But that's why we would not need to actually have those teachings if we all knew how to deal with our minds. And that's exactly why the Buddhist teachings arise in the world. They are risen in the world, because there was a need. Because there was a need for people like us to actually find ways to know how to deal with especially our negative experiences, our unpleasant experiences, or our suffering, as we say. And at the same time, to help us develop our hearts more and more and more and more. So that's why is it here? Cause and effect. Think about it. If there was no need, then no need for Dharma, right? It's very, very special because sometimes people ask like, oh, but like how, where? Well, cause and effect. There was a need and therefore there was an intention from the Buddha's side of wanting to benefit others. So then from that point, it came, from that wish to help others. And others is not like other people, it's us. We are others in this context, right? We are the other ones needing and receiving that incredible help. So that is why, these teachings have been around for 2,600 years. Wow, very special. And we are here receiving the benefit of these teachings. So this is the potential. This will be when I see these things and we think about these things, especially in this way of thinking, this is the way to help us understand the potential of our mind. We can, you know, develop ways to help others that can last for more than 2,600 years if we want to, if we put our minds to, if our intention is there. So that is very special if you think about it, right? Very, very special that we have that potential. Because the Buddha, no difference, like the the Buddha and ourselves just wanted to help us. So that's why. And especially, those teachings of the Lojong or mind training started to come about because we started, to realize those teachers of the past, the Buddhas, they started to realize that we have a very strong tendency, very strong habit, the strongest habit we have, which is to think about me, myself, and I. That's the strongest habit, isn't it? Sometimes people will ask is like, but where did it come from? These. Well, it actually came from just this habitual tendency of just thinking that we are the center of the universe and our happiness, is the most important happiness of the universe. And, being free from suffering, making ourselves free from any unpleasant situation is the most important thing. So the more we do that, you know, the more we kind of like habituate ourselves to continue doing it again and again and again, right? That's how it is. So these mind training teachings, they're exactly to go against, to counteract that habit of what we call cherishing ourselves. Cherishing ourselves, it doesn't mean cherishing ourselves, in a kind of like cherishing ourselves needs to be understood. That is like, let's not go to the extreme of like, don't think about yourself, it's not that like that, right? Because sometimes we do need to do things that will look like externally, as people can say, maybe selfish, right? Like taking decisions, for example, of say, no, this is a boundary, this I'm not gonna do it. Or sometimes people say, like maybe the story of the Buddha actually left his family. He had a wife and kid and he left them, right? And people say, this is outrageous, right? However, if you think about it, out of this decision, he went and he awakened to these like reality, or he awakened to this method, or he developed his this method that has been helping countless people, countless beings for 2,600 years. And not only that, actually, his son became one of his first disciples, one of his first monks ordained by the Buddha. Hmm. So actually, if we think about it, benefit can be different, right? We talk about it last Tuesday. No, it was our Tuesday class that we talk about benefit, wasn't it? That we talk about it. So benefit is very important that we start to understand it in this way. So then, in this, when we are talking about Lojong, the benefit that we are trying to develop is the benefit of decreasing, especially decreasing and eliminating our self-cherishing, our selfish motivation, right? Why we want to do that? Because this is the biggest hindrance for us to achieve our goal. What is our goal in Buddhism? Achieve peerless, perfect, everlasting, peaceful, full of love, compassion, wisdom type of happiness, right? So that is what we want to achieve. But this is not only that part. We also want to completely eliminate all our different types and levels and of suffering and the causes of it. So these are our goal. This is our goal, right? This is the goal. And the Buddha said something very special, because he said, I cannot take away your suffering and I cannot give, you know, your like perfect your good qualities for you, but I can show you the way. I can show you the path. And that's what we are kind of like, that's why we study these texts, so we can actually use the knowledge from someone that has achieved that goal that we want, so we can walk that path and and like do the same things, or follow the same kind of like follow the same way that he present that he did, so we can achieve that for ourselves. And therefore, the more we can actually do that for ourselves, the more we are able to help others as well, show the way for others as well. That is very important. If we have an addiction and we we start to say, oh yes, we need to help others to be free from this addiction and all of that. If we don't get rid of the addiction ourselves first, it's like not possible for us to actually show the way, right, to others. So that is what we need to do. So our addiction right now is called me, myself, and I. So we need to first really eliminate this wrong addiction, right? And then what we do, we can actually help others. So that is very, 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 very special what we're doing. So that is what we've been talking about. So that's why, we always start, as I said in the beginning of these, the Buddha, that he had that intention to help us, right? Because he developed and he perfected that intention. Therefore, his teachings, came about, and we are able to benefit from them. So, in order for us to do the same, we need to also create that intention, and we need to familiarize ourselves with that intention of helping others. We need to familiarize ourselves more and more and more with that wish. Therefore, that is the reason why we do aspirational prayers, right? I really think that I want one day to be able to stop calling it prayers, because I think that we have such a strong Christian, mentality when we talk about prayers, as if we are praying for someone else, right? That's the idea. We are asking or requesting, for someone else. And in some ways, there is a part of us that might be requesting for inspiration, to the Buddhas and all of that, to the teachers. But that is not really, in a way, it's like the Buddhas are perfect. They already want to help us. So they are kind of like wanting to inspire us. It's more us. We are the ones needing to kind of like open ourselves to receive or to see them as an inspiration. So when we are talking about doing these kind of like prayers, Buddhist prayers, we are not talking about like praying to something or to someone. We are actually trying to develop our intention. It's like we are aspiring to develop an intention that is different than the intention that we have right now. That is a beneficial intention. Beneficial in the sense of making us achieve these two goals of finding lasting, peaceful, everlasting, peaceful happiness, and eliminating suffering and the causes of suffering. Right? Does it make sense what I'm saying? Yeah,
Yes.
I think that it does really help, because sometimes if we go into that kind of like a habitual tendencies that of just using prayers as as a kind of like as an external source, thinking that someone will listen to it, right? The only person that needs to listen our aspirational prayers in a way is ourselves. you know we need to listen when we are doing these prayers and try to convince ourselves and say, oh, that's true. Yeah, 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 yeah. If I actually think about benefiting others, I will find happiness, and I will then eventually really move towards doing that. So that's important. I don't know why I decided to say this today, because I think it is important. I think it's important that we understand it, right? We understand, clearly understand what these aspirations are about. Okay? So that's why we're gonna do it. That's why we're gonna do it now. Let me check if I can find it. Um, it's not here. Wait. Let me open up. It was already over there though. Let me put it again. Where is it? Okay. I'm very
Would you like me to
confused.
open it?
I think I found
Oh,
it.
never
Thank you,
mind.
sweetheart. Thank you so much. So we're gonna start with what we call, the four immeasurable thoughts. So that is very important. The four immeasurable thoughts are in itself, that incredible, powerful mental state. So so it's us trying to develop those thoughts. So we putting the intention that we can, perfect the thought. That means first we want to perfect the thought within ourselves. Like we want to have that thought as clear in our minds. And at the same time, we just don't want that, but we want to accomplish what the thought behind it. So, remember we talked about that the mind kind of like is the creator of the action of body and speech. We talked that so many times before. So it's like the more we actually aspire, the more we transform the intention, the thought, then if we have that thought 24/7, that means that our actions of body and speech are going to be, I'm not going to say contaminated, but are going to be influenced by that. You're going to be kind of like coming from that. So the more we actually develop that wish, that intention, the more we actually act towards accomplish that intention, right? So that's very important. Very, 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 very special. So we can try to just start by really thinking that, maybe today we had situations in our minds, in our lives that were difficult. We're being triggered by something or someone, or maybe we had an incredible good day, whatever it is that happens to us, you know, we know that is not permanent. It's changing, you know? And it's kind of like sometimes difficult because we already know that. We know that sometimes we have difficulties and we are tired. We need to develop that tiredness of this kind of like up and down, you know? That roller coaster of being happy, but not really happy, being like excited and having our pleasures fulfilled, you know? And just being down and being miserable and being like, sad or depressed or angry or whatever. So you want to develop a kind of like a sense of enough, a tiredness. I don't want this anymore. I want to achieve some sort of stability. And in order to do that, I need to work on my mind, you know? And especially I need to stop looking at only my own type of kind of like, because I want to be happy and not suffer. And the more I just think about my own happiness and my own suffering, I actually suffer more and I don't find that happiness. So the more I think about others, because if I actually look in my life is just completely dependent on the kindness of others, right? So then when I start actually thinking about them and treating them well and being nice to them and doing all of these things, then I start to feel happy myself. A different type of, not this agitated, kind of like pleasurable type of experience, but we try to feel that peaceful type of happiness. So that is why we need to really ingrain that wish in ourselves. Okay? So we're gonna do these four immeasurable thoughts with that mind. Okay, so we can do that together. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. And may all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. Because that is the way that we think we're going to find happiness. And in order to do that, for us to accomplish that intention, for us to accomplish the goal of the intention, the objective of the intention, we need to actually, find true objects, true ways to actually develop our minds and our hearts towards that objective. So we take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, which are, things that can help us develop that. Hmm? Can help us, increase our inner happiness and can decrease our cause of suffering and can make us the perfect vessel to accomplish the four immeasurables, right? So that's what we're going to do. And everything that we're going to do it today in order to become Dharma. So in order to become, the antidote for these two minds, for the mindset of suffering and the mindset that cannot find happiness, we're going to use everything that we say, everything that we discuss, everything that we ask today, so we can develop those kind of like mental states. And therefore when we do that, we become the perfect vessel, we become a Buddha, which is the perfect vessel to benefit others. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So we can visualize in front of us, the Buddha, if we want, representing that potential that we have to be perfected. Or we can see, we can also visualize around the Buddha all the other Buddhas, the seven medicine Buddhas for those that know, the 35 Buddhas, all the different Buddhas, all the different deities as well, Tara, and all of these beings, incredible beings. And especially all our teachers as well, that represent here, like close to us, those enlightened qualities, those kind of like, that possibility to inspire us, as we say. So when we see them, we see, wow, we can be like them. So we get inspired. So that's why we visualize them. So when we go for a refuge, we try to really receive those blessings in our minds, that inspiration. So we do that. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. So, what we were talking about last week, last class. Anyone? Deb remembers
Uh,
what we were talking
yeah,
about?
yeah. You were talking about how we uh, first would equalize ourselves with others, see the disadvantages of our own self-cherishing, and not taking others as important, and that they want happiness too. And when we are self-cherishing, we see people as objects and not real, and then seeing the advantages of cherishing others, because it could
Cherishing others, yes.
cherishing diminish our own self-centeredness, and then exchanging self with others and Tonglen.
And Tonglen, yes, very good, very good. Because the last thing we talked about was Tonglen, right? That meditation that we do of kind of like really doing that exchanging, and kind of like taking all the suffering of others and kind of like not feeling overwhelmed or sad or anything like that. We really take and we happy by it. We take that, and we actually offer, we give. So taking and giving, right? Tong len, that's the idea. So we give all our good qualities, all of the kind of like things that we do in order to fulfill the happiness of our selfish kind of like mental states, we give to others. So, everything that we want, we give to others. So that is the ideas that we start really changing that obsession we have with ourselves, and we start to include others' happiness as a way for us to find our own happiness. Okay? So that is the idea, the main idea of this text. And if we think about it, all of the text, all of the verses and up until now, was exactly talking about it. Isn't it? All of them. I don't know if you guys remember, but it was kind of like we were offering the victory. We were seeing ourselves as the humbles of one. Where is Chrissy? Chrissy is there. Maybe Jason is there as well. We talk about pride, So it's kind of like we were talking always with that idea. We were talking always about this idea of kind of like offering the victory and really kind of like seeing ourselves as lords, as ways to transform our minds, isn't it? And especially that mind of self-cherishing and developing a good quality. So that was like the main focus of this text. Remember, we talked about it. The main focus of this text was to develop the mind of enlightenment, the mind of bodhicitta. The bodhicitta means I want to achieve enlightenment. I want to achieve a state of freedom from my own suffering and the cause of suffering, and I want to achieve a state of lasting, peaceful, perfect happiness. So if I have that, I have all the tools in order to help others, right? So I do that. I try to achieve enlightenment. I want to achieve enlightenment so I can help others, so I can have all the necessary tools. So that is the idea, okay? So we say that for us to achieve enlightenment, we need to develop the what we call method and wisdom, or a compassion and wisdom, or bodhicitta and emptiness. Many different ways that we can talk about that, many different levels we can talk. But why we say that? Why we say that we need to develop emptiness, or we need to develop, wisdom, and we need to develop method? Well, we need to develop that because actually we need to develop two things that we want when we achieve enlightenment. We want to benefit others, right? We say we want to benefit others. So what we need to have in order to benefit others is perfect wisdom, meaning we are free from all the suffering and we have the necessary ways to benefit others. So we say that we want to develop what we say the mind of the Buddha and the form of a Buddha. So a form of a Buddha is something that is completely pure in a way, which means that it has no restrictions and it can manifest in whatever way is it possible and is best to benefit others. So that is why we say that these two wings of the bird, they are actually aiming to develop, the mind through wisdom and you know, the method is developing the kind of like the necessary conditions for the manifestation of this wisdom to achieve or to reach others, right? So that is what we are kind of like trying to develop, you know, in our minds. That is like the main goal or the main wish that we have. So therefore we need to kind of like use what we are talking about now, you know, is like we want to use that the kind of like what we call practices that are related to the cultivation of this method, right? The method, or what we call as well like the bodhicitta. But in bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, the mind of wanting to achieve enlightenment to help others, has two types, let's say like that, inside of that mind of bodhicitta. We can call it the conventional bodhicitta and the ultimate bodhicitta. I know we're gonna like go and confuse you guys. I'm gonna make you guys very confused today. So then we finish the class today. No more classes now, and then you guys go get confused. No, I'm kidding. We're gonna like, you know, we have still 2 weeks to kind of like make you guys not confused. But today is very important that we understand that, because the last verse, that is the verse that we're gonna talk about it now, is kind of like talking about the method side, the wisdom side. So everything that we've been talking about now, it was to develop the method, to develop these ways of approaching and developing these good qualities, you know, like being humble, being kind of like patient, being, you know, generous, or being kind, and be all of these things, which is, if you think about it, they are methods, or they are ways, or they are, you know, kind of like manifestations, ways of manifesting. Yeah, makes sense. Ways of manifesting ourselves towards with others, right? If I am kind, if I am humble, if I am this, it's a ways of manifestation, right? So that is very important, that we are kind of like understanding this. That is like, so everything that we've been doing is that we've been talking about now up until this point in the text. We discussed all of these different practices that are relating with cultivating that conventional bodhicitta, this altruistic intention, this intention to become enlightened, to benefit others, right? And enlightenment has these two aspects, as I was saying: the perfect mind, or the perfect wisdom of the Buddha, and the perfect kind of like method, or the perfect manifestation, or the perfect form of a Buddha, right? So that is why we say, to in order to achieve that, we need to practice wisdom, and we need to practice the methods, so because the method correlates, or connected with this perfection of the form of the manifestation of the Buddha, and the perfection of the practice of wisdom or insight correlates with that perfection of wisdom, right? Or the mind of the Buddha. Okay, so that is important, because when we're gonna talk about on the let me open the text, let me open here. When we're talking about on the 8th verse, this is the 8th verse. Also, I do not defile all these practices by the stains of the superstitions of the 8 worldly concerns. Da-da-da-da. Also, I do not defile these practices. Okay, so the practices that we are talking about here are what we talk about, the practices of these methods, are these, compassionate, kind, humble, generous ways, right? So what we say that we don't defile, what do we use the word, defile. What does it mean? You guys that are native English speakers and not stupid than me. What it means defile? What's the definition?
And to stain,
Not?
to stain, to
Kind of curse. It could be curse, like
could be,
curse.
yeah. Defiled is like you make something bad,
Yeah, you make it dirty.
you make it
Dirty?
dirty,
I like it.
you
I like
stain it.
it. Bob?
Not practice in a negative way. Don't be negative about them. Appreciate them for what they are.
Wait. I'm just asking what defile. Defile means
Defile
make
means defile
make
means
something
don't
bad.
don't think of them in a negative way.
No, hey,
But
that's the whole verse. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
but
not what the
yeah,
word
I think that
defines.
you're explaining the meaning of the entire phrase. But I just want to say defile first. To defile something means to make something dirty or bad, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so when you defile something, you're making something dirty or bad. But as you know, like Bob has has one eye and a half, but he has a very sharp mind. So he's already like, going forward, going very fast. But this is exactly what he was saying, is exactly the meaning of it, right? We don't defile these practices, means we don't make these practices, contaminated or by the
Yeah.
stains, as it says in the text, of the eight worldly concerns, or the eight worldly concerns. So last year we did an entire teachings, 3 months of the eight worldly concerns. Dun, 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 dun. So what are the eight worldly concerns? Let's see who remembers that. So,
Well,
no,
pain and pleasure,
pain and pleasure. Very good.
gain and loss.
Greed.
What?
Greed.
Gain. Oh, sorry. Oh,
Gain and loss.
Also,
Yes. Greed. No, there was something.
greed. Greed. Greed.
no.
No.
Greed. No, there is something more about maybe something related to kind of like when we want people
Good
to
reputation.
reputation. Yes, good reputation.
Okay.
Praise and blame.
Praise and blame, yes. Hannah talked, but Hannah's voice changed. It's like she sounds like Alex now. They're becoming one and the other.
Hmm.
So, yes, praise and blame. And then we talked about, I think already, like good
Happiness and pain.
happiness and pain. Yes, yes, yes. So it's kind of like they are four kind of like things and the opposite of these four things, let's say like that. So especially kind of like I always like to start from this because it's easier to say praise and blame. Is like being afraid of like being criticized, but wanting or being attached to praise, you know. Then we have good reputation, attachment to good reputation, and fear or aversion of having a bad reputation, right? And then kind of like having these kind of like attachment for pleasurable experiences and being afraid or being angry or being aversion to kind of like, difficulties, And then also this idea of like having gain or wealth or whatever, and being kind of like aversion to have not having these things or losing them and all of that. So if you think about it, these, what we call, when we talk about the eight worldly dharmas, we say that the eight worldly dharmas, these four things and the opposite of them, are the status quo, or it means that every moment of our lives right now are contaminated by them all the time, right? It's contaminated by them. So everything that we do is kind of like it's being contaminated by these eight worldly concerns. So the text is saying, almost say, please, please, begging us, don't contaminate these precious teachings with the eight worldly concerns. Meaning, when you are offering the victory to others, or when you're exchanging yourself to others, when we are doing things to others, don't do it for praise. Don't do it for having a good reputation. Don't do it for kind of like, getting anything in return or any gain out of it. Because if you do that, even though the practice in itself, has the intention to help us, it will not help us. Right? So let's say, there's one of the texts say something kind of like, one of the verses, if you guys remember, it says, when the fifth, let me share with you so you guys can remember that, we say in the fifth verse, we say, when out of envy others mistreat me with abuse, insults, and the like, I accept defeat and offer the victory to others. So then I'm going to do that with the idea of saying to people, oh, yes, like, look at me, how amazing and magnanimous and spiritual and evolved and all of that I am, right? Then no Dharma in there. So this doesn't become an antidote for our self-cherishing. It actually becomes the opposite, right? Trying to practice this verse becomes the opposite because he's contaminated by the eight worldly concerns. Is actually enhancing my self-cherishing because I'm looking to accomplish these, or having, like the attachment to these eight worldly concerns is there, right? So this is so important that every Dharma practice, and especially this one, the text kind of like, this is for all Dharma practice that we do. Everything that I've been talking about for the past, last year, that I've been talking in this year, everything that we've been kind of like, especially on Sundays when we talk about good, like, tips for life, when we talk about what we can do, how we can transform the mind, and all of these Lojong teachings, if we do with that mind of some of one or all of the eight worldly concerns, we are not practicing Dharma. So this is so profound if we think about it, that it's not just repeating these words, or not even kind of like trying to say, oh yes, I offer the victory or something like this. And sometimes some people say, especially in the Buddhist groups, they kind of like, someone does something to you and then you become very angry and someone says, oh, just offer the victory, something like that, and it's kind of like, oh yes, okay, oh yeah, I'm gonna be spiritual, I'm gonna be a good Buddhist. I'm gonna be a good Buddhist and I'm gonna just offer the victory and say to this person, it's okay, you can do whatever you want, I don't care, I'm okay with that. And instead we are bubbling, or we are actually thinking, oh yes, people see me as amazing, oh yes, you see, now people think I am amazing. No, you're creating more suffering for ourselves, actually, just suffering. We are creating more causes for our sufferings now and in the future. So that is the kind of like understanding that the intention, if the intention of us practicing those kind of like teachings is based on the eight worldly concerns, forget about it. We are creating suffering for ourselves. Huh? We are still enhancing the self-cherishing. We are still enhancing that kind of like, confused mind, and we are not going to be able to find what we want, which is freedom from suffering and lasting peaceful happiness. Okay? So important that if you don't know what the eight worldly concerns are, that there's a beautiful book from Rinpoche called How to Practice Dharma, and you read it and you actually going to understand more how to practice the eight verses of mind training, right? Because everything that we do, if it is contaminated with this idea of being praised, having a good reputation, having material gains, or having, kind of like any pleasures out of it, forget it. And the opposites of them, forget it. It's not gonna bring us to enlightenment. It's not gonna bring us to actually developing the bodhicitta mind, the mind that wants to, to help others. It won't, because they are opposite of these mindsets, right? They are exactly the opposite. They are only thinking about this life. They are only thinking about myself. They are only kind of like extremely selfish and self-centered mental states. Yeah. So that is why it's so important that we understand that, so we don't contaminate ourselves, so we don't allow ourselves to be contaminated by them, right? So what we do, we become aware of them, right? We kind of like really, 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 we make sure that in our cultivation of these, especially this bodhicitta mind, this wish to help others, our mind's not defiled, not dirty, not, made it bad by these thoughts, right? So it's very important to check ourselves and check our understanding, especially our intention in what we are doing, because if not, if we start to feel proud, if we start to feel like, in any way wanting to receive, any kind of like material thing from these, or any type of kind of like comfort or gain from those by for by practicing those, kind of like Lojong trainings, forget about it. It's not gonna actually do it. So this is very, 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 very important. So we kind of like can use that as well to practice. So it says there's another text that says something in the sense of like, you know, when may I be kind of like happy when someone's actually criticize me, right? The opposite of the eight worldly concerns. So it says, may I be happy when someone criticize me, and may I be kind of like not affected or not wanting or not like liking when someone praises me, right? You can do Lojong. You can do mind training with the eight worldly concerns, right? May I actually be happy when I lose something, and I be kind of like disgusted when I actually have gain from something, right? So it's just that. We can even start using the eight worldly concerns because we start to look at it in our minds and we start to do the mind training, the changing of the mind. Does it make sense what I say about that? Did you guys understand? Are we communicating?
It sounds hard.
Yes.
Yes, I understand that it does sound hard, but it's doable, right? So that is, I think, the most important thing that we actually need to understand. And the best is like starting. And the more we start to feel the benefit of it. We start to see the taste of it, right? It's like, wow, when I actually don't feel affected or I actually don't like when someone praises me, I actually become better. I enjoy more than actually when someone praises me, right? Then you start to believe in it from your own experience, not because a crazy monk Cowden is saying it, but because your own experience actually tells you that. Why? Because one becomes obsessed with the praise and becomes dependent on the praise and becomes worried if like people not gonna praise you anymore or if people like criticize you, right? But the opposite, you don't have that. You have peace of mind. It's like, I don't care, people can say whatever they want. I don't need it, right? I don't need the praise. I'm actually happy when I see that I don't need the praise, right? So that is when the mind starts to say, oh, wow, it works. Yes, it's difficult because we need to be aware, we need to recognize the eight words concern, and then we need to apply Lojong. So this is why, because the habit that we have is just to slide, as I like to say, completely slide into the eight worldly concerns and allow it to take control. But here is like we do a little bit of effort and then we actually kind of like recognize it. We have the awareness of it, and then we recognize it what it is, and we recognize these negativities. We recognize that allowing ourselves, to fall under the control of the eight worldly concerns is no good, and then we apply Lojong. So then life becomes very good, very, very good. So I think, Bob, you're going to say something, or you had a question? No, it's okay. So that is really, really kind of like what we can start developing in ourselves. So that is why it's so important, that we really, really try when we are trying to practice these practices of the eight worldly concern, the eight verses. Everything is eight verses. So I become crazy. But that idea of eight verses, if we really try to practice them, let's really be careful with not becoming making it. And that is normally what we do, right? We come from our normal lives and we kind of like, we when we practice whatever we practice in our daily lives, it's like, we are used to receive praises and receive kind of like compliments. So when we practice Dharma, we start to do the same. And especially when we're starting to kind of like do something like Dharma that is saying, oh, let's benefit all sentient beings, let's achieve enlightenment to benefit all sentient beings. Then we start to put these kind of like same mental states of like, oh, if I start doing and be nice and be kind and be this, and people will like me, people will see me as a, like incredible and kind and all of that. So we start to do it for that. Again, being enslaved by what people think or not about us, right? So no difference. So that's why I say like Dharma is not just changing clothes or like going to a Dharma center, doing this and even repeating these words or doing prayers or doing prostrations or doing any of this. Nothing of this can be Dharma. Can still be a way to actually enhance our negative emotions, enhance our, self-cherishing attitude. It can still be. So that's why Dharma is so profound, because it's an inner experience and is based on that mind, that mental state, right? Of actually cutting the eight worldly concerns, if we want to say it like this. Yes? Does it make sense? Are we communicating? Yes? Yes, Bob.
I get confused here.
Uh-huh.
And by the way, Jack, I absolutely agree with you. All of this is very difficult. Uh, you 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 talk about the inner state and not the outer world state,
Yes.
but isn't being aware of every moment to moment that you talked about in the way that you're interacting
Mm-hmm.
in the outer world, isn't that an outer world perspective where you're not where you're not harming others, even if it's just your tone or the words or
It only is after, so we only worried about these things about when we have the intention first. So
right.
if it's a mental state,
Okay.
because I can be checking the way I don't harm others, or I actually say my tone or any of these because I want to receive praise for
No,
doing that.
not praise, just
Just what?
not looking for praise, just not looking to feel bad yourself about when you slip up.
Develop more.
Okay, so yeah, yesterday at the end of the day, I was thinking about my day, and I was thinking about the different moments I could have, the different moments I fell into my old patterns, and I could have tried to be in a different transformative mental state of how I was interacting with people and my tone or what I was saying or what I was doing.
Wonderful exercise, and very, very, very proud that you did that. Very good, very good. This is a very good exercise. Okay, go on.
That was it. But isn't that the outer as opposed to the inner?
Because the idea of the outer is like looking at, if you're looking at kind of like, oh, I should have done this, like, I should have talked to this person in a more kind way,
Yes.
because let's look at it into the because the because
Okay.
is the most important. Because I don't want this person to suffer, I didn't want this to make harm to this person and all of that, then that's good, right?
Okay. That's what I'm asking.
But then we need to go a little bit more the other because, like, or we need to ask ourselves, like, why I don't want to harm this person. If I say because I want this person to like me and praise me, then
No,
everything bad.
I don't
You
even know
understand?
the other person. I'm
No, no,
just,
no. But that is why we need to go further. Someone asked me, told me something the other day that I didn't realize, because my mind is, I think, is just becoming habituated with, we stop in the first question, let's say, a way of a questioning. You understand what I mean by that? We just say, is that good or bad, or that's it. So we don't continue questioning, you know, until the, as I said, because I was a tax lawyer in my previous life at some in one of my previous lives at some point, and we have the what we call the ultimate beneficiary, right? Do you understand these?
Yes, yeah.
So it's like the ultimate beneficiary means it's like, who is benefiting from that actually ultimately, right? So yes, of course, when we are doing things in the way, like for example, with like developing even the mind of enlightenment, the bodhicitta mind, we are also benefiting from that because we are going to achieve enlightenment, but we are not doing that just for ourselves. We are doing because we want to help others, right? When I am doing something with the mind of the eight worldly concerns, I don't care so much what is going to happen with the other person. I'm more interested in them praising me, right? So that is when we start to really recognize the ultimate beneficiary, let's say like that, right? It's like, what is the ultimate benefit of, like, the ultimate wish of this? And that is when the real hard work starts, Bob, for me. Because the mind can be very sneaky.
Yeah.
And can really start to kind of like create an entire story about how amazing and nice and this I am and pure and all of that, and we start to believe, right? And this is actually the difficult part, because if we ended up in that, I'm gonna make fun of Jason, we become proud, we develop pride, and actually pride makes us not be able to really change, right? Because we think, no, but I'm just like this, I'm already perfect, or I was not doing this. And I have to say something, because that's what we were discussing last Tuesday, right? Right now our minds are contaminated by wrong views, and our minds, because contaminated by wrong views, everything that we do, remember, we talked about it on Tuesday, but like, so if people are not on Tuesday, I'm so sorry, but on Tuesday we said that every mind that we have right now is contaminated by these, right, this misconception of reality, and therefore the way we are seeing ourselves is a wrong way. Therefore, the self-cherishing, remember we talk about the difference between self-grasping and self-cherishing, then self-cherishing is the main habit. So I'm very sorry, I'm not saying that people don't have altruistic mindsets, but even that altruistic mindset is still contaminated in some levels by the self-cherishing.
Absolutely.
So I'm just,
Sit over here.
you know, so I'm just kind of like, unfortunately, that is a little bit the reality, until we really are in a level that we are kind of like really coming from an altruistic, pure altruistic, that would mean that we have a very strong understanding of the self-grasping, and we have decreased a lot of our self-grasping, right? So they are together, because if there is still self-grasping, there is a manifestation of self-cherishing. It's just levels of it. Does it make sense what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
So
Yeah, I
that
think
is
Nick
kind of
has
like,
a question.
Nick has a question. Okay, so just a second, Nick. So that is very important that we understand that it is like when we so that's why I talk about the ultimate beneficiary, and really going again and again of the why, and really asking, and really kind of like staying with this, and really kind of like coming. And that's why I always talk about it, two things when we are talking of these ultimate and analyzing the ultimate beneficiary and doing what we are doing here, which is like, let's use honesty and courage, right? Honest means like, let's just really open our hearts and really say, okay, let's be honest. Like, what are we actually wanting from this, And have the courage to say, I just bloody want someone to say that I am a bloody amazing, And that's fine. Because once you really find and recognize that, then you found the self-cherishing. And then you can transform it. Then you can start to really, use that mental state to say, oh, but I am like, when I do that, when I'm actually engaging with this mind, I'm suffering. I'm not actually getting that. I need to change that. And I want, and then you start to practice. You understand? Yes? You guys
Yes.
understand what I'm saying? Yes?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes.
Very good. Yes, sir. We are Dharma warriors. We are all Dharma warriors. Nick, I'm sorry. What, you had a question?
Yeah, so in regards to this, I think I particularly struggle when like with feeling misrepresented. You know what I mean? Like and I was wondering if you had advice on that in particular.
What do you mean? Can you kind of like give an example or kind of explain a bit more when you say misrepresented?
Like someone's saying you're mean or you talk too much when I don't feel I've done anything mean or like I've said too much. You know, that those are just like silly examples, not anything in particular I'm thinking of, but like when I feel misrepresented in such a way, like accused of something that I don't feel I was doing,
Yeah. When you feel
you know?
criticized in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, like in a way. And what that makes you feel
Uncomfortable because I feel
uncomfortable.
it doesn't represent who I actually am on the inside. Does
Okay,
that make
very
sense?
yeah, that makes a lot of sense because then we all experience exactly the same, right? So, and then the problem is that we do that like with people criticizing us, and we also do that when we criticize ourselves as well sometimes, right? So that is also is a very interesting thing to also observe sometimes, right? We kind of like also misrepresent ourselves as well to ourselves. So that is very important. So when we talk about it, that in the eight worldly concerns, is that we really need to start understanding that actually this criticism, it first is just like there's only a conflict, okay, when there's a very strong attachment to a way of seeing how we are and how we should be, right? As I always call the reference point. So if Nick thinks that, has a strong attachment that he is or should always be the kind, nice, not talking and not bothering and all of that, okay? And if you have done or haven't done that, doesn't matter in a way, and someone says or confronts or kind of like challenges that idea of you, then there is a kind of like a tension that
Yeah.
as you described as a discomfort. Are
Yeah.
we? Does it make sense so far what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that's accurate.
So here we have two aspects that we need to check. One is investigating what is coming from outside, so the words and what the person is saying, and then we can check and say, let me see if actually this is true, because maybe I did that, maybe I actually talked too much, maybe I did this and maybe I did that, right? So I can actually check that, and then from there I can actually learn and say, oh, okay, maybe I did that because, and I can start asking, why did I did that, right? Oh, because maybe I was anxious and all of that and all of, so you can start kind of like actually being honest and courage to look into what the person is saying. And because why? Because if this person is telling something that maybe is true, then you're learning about yourself and you're becoming a better human being. Great. So actually this person is best friend, right? So in this way we actually like acknowledge and enjoy and be happy when this happen. But secondly, what we need to also check is that perfect idea of ourselves. Because let's face it, we also are contaminated and we also have the habit of being attached, or being angry, or being this, or being that. Therefore, we have, as we were talking, so many times, and like last week and this week, we don't have control of these habits. And sometimes they actually happen without us being aware, right? So that is a good way for us to start understanding, and start looking at ourselves in a more uh, a less biased way, right? Than actually the biased way that we normally look, which is like, I don't do things bad to others. I am not like doing that. I'm not, which is coming from that very strong attached sense of self, which is what we call the self-cherishing or the ego, right? And we understand, then we need to start understand where does it come from, that idea. Well, we can start thinking that it comes from our confused mind that believed that if we act and we be and we say and we do things in this way, we're gonna find happiness and we're not gonna find suffering. Are you following me, Nick, so far?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. So that is so important for us to actually start observing, because then we start to look into these kind of like idea of ourselves, not as a criticism, but just understanding that is a habitual aspect of us seeing ourselves, because we believe that that way of thinking, of being, is going to bring us happiness and not suffer, because this is our main, like, kind of like innermost wish. So you don't do these things because you have consciousness, you are conscious of that, these things of acting in this certain way, or even thinking and being attached to this way, is going to bring you suffering, right? You don't do that. You're not crazy. Nobody is. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, "Oh, I hope I can like really suffer and I can be happy," right? Like, I cannot. Nobody wakes up saying, "I hope I can suffer and I don't become happy," right? We are the opposite. So if we are doing things in ways that actually are creating this discomfort, like for example, being attached of a way of believing ourselves to be, it's not because we are crazy. It's just because we are wrong. We are ignorant, and we are kind of like we are um, mis misconceiving that idea, right? It's a wrong idea. It's just that, right? So that will help. Just a second, Jack. So that will help us to release a little bit that attachment of ourselves, and to look into ourselves with a more open and broad and kind of like kind way, and say, well, sometimes I can be a little bit like this and I can recognize that, and sometimes I'm also very nice, and sometimes, so I am not this fixed, permanent, either pure amazing way that I'm seeing myself, or I am not also bad as this person is telling me, because the way they talk, it looks and hears to me that I am permanent and I'm always like that, and I'm also not this permanent, always kind of like angel. You know what I mean? So I start to have a more open and relaxed and kind of like, let's say, realistic approach to myself. Yes, sometimes I am like that, and sometimes I can be a pain in the ass. Right? Sorry, I'm
Yep.
not saying you are like this, you know, but just that. And that kind of like makes us more kind of like easy. And the way we're going to approach that kind of like criticism or misrepresentation of who we are is going to be coming the way we're going to approach that person or that situation, more unbiased, less reactive, you know, more open, more kind, more clear. So then we're gonna be able to actually look and say, oh yeah, it's okay, like we're gonna say, I actually don't care, like I don't think that I am like that anyway, so it's okay. I'm just gonna continue being myself. Or I'm gonna look and say, well, maybe I actually, cross a little bit here, like cross the line, and maybe I just, and I just apologize, and that's it. Doesn't become heavy, right? So I like to
Right.
say, you are is maybe it's the first time you're seeing one of my talks.
Second time. Second
Second
time.
time. So I like to say that we take out the Brazilian drama, and we see things a little bit more kind of like relaxed, That is the idea of it. Does it help what I'm saying? Does it make sense?
Very much. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. I
Okay.
used to be confused about like when I would see people who were like, "Well, I don't feel that way," and I would be like, "How are you responding that way?" And this is really helpful. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, good. Thank you so much. This was a very good question. Jack, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, but you answered it already, so never
Because I
mind.
talk too much. Because I talk too much, and then it becomes like this.
No, 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 it's good. It was basically I was going to ask. Okay, so what if you check? Somebody's accusing you of something, and you check, is it right or is it wrong? No, they're wrong. So then what? Yeah, but yeah, I think you answered it.
No, and then that's it. It's kind of like most important is the mind. So that's what I also helps to answer a little bit of what Bob was saying. It's kind of like, it's not about the way you're gonna talk to them or anything like that. It's about how your mind is doing it, and then you kind of like you realize that it's like, oh yeah, kind of like like on a relative way, I can see that I didn't do that, like especially when someone accuses you for kind of like stealing and you didn't steal, right? And you kind of like, then if you need to go call a lawyer, like defend yourself and all that, that's great. It's kind no, honestly, it's just like we don't,
Yeah.
this doesn't mean makes it as a bad person. No, it's just like we are just using it on a kind of like relative way because that's how facts are. But if I have the mental drama, the Brazilian drama, then it becomes this entire process much heavier, much more difficult. And then my mind becomes emotional, and then I become hijacked by this emotion. Hijacked, hijacked by these emotions. And then I'm gonna make a confusion even worse of the situation, right? And not only
Right.
this, I hanging in, like I grasp to it, and then I become heavy, and then my day, my life, my situations, and all of that, right? How many people sometimes we know or we see that they being almost they are bitter because something they just grasp to that and they became because these people and then we become like that, right? We believe we allow it that to become our reality. When if we look at it's not. Oh yeah, maybe this, oh maybe that. It's okay. And then we have the freedom to actually respond with a clear mind, not a reactive, contaminated mind. So then the result, whatever is going to be, so like here a little bit more to Bob, is like the external manifestation doesn't matter. It might be saying, I think you're completely right, and thank you very much, and I'm so sorry. And can be, I don't think so, fuck off. I'm sorry, but that's it. That's it. That it can be because the intention is there. It is so important that we do that, that we understand the mind, that it is actually the creator of either something that we will become happiness or something that will become suffering for ourselves, right? Do you understand? Yes?
Oh yeah.
Good. Good. Very good. This was a great, great question, Nick. You should have come more. You come more to the teachers. You ask more questions.
Definitely.
Okay, and then we can kind of like have these because these types of questions are very important because it helps all. So thank you so much. And Bob's question was also very good, and also yours, Jack. So thank you for that. Okay, so I'm not gonna start the second um, line or the two lines of the last verse, which goes like this. And by knowing all phenomena to be illusory, without trusting in them, I am freed from bondage. I am not gonna go there because we're gonna talk about it next week and the following week. We're gonna do that before we do it because this is a whole new game. So I don't want to make your minds more confused. Let's stay with these good insights that we already got from like today, and then next week we start fresh. Talking about what it means. The kind of like what it means for us to knowing all phenomena to be illusory. It's like what is this talking about? These crazy people. It's like magician. We're gonna become magicians. So that's what we're gonna kind of like talk. So then we talk about next week. Okay, so we finish today with these, and we don't forget to dedicate. What we just did, this insight, especially like Nick that said like, oh yes, it helps. Okay, Nick, so you take this insight, this helpful thing that you just did, and you say, wow, if I actually use this to help myself to feel better and all of that, I become less reactive and therefore I harm less people or I do less things to others, right? So
Yes.
so you create that kind of like dedication to say, may I use that not only for benefiting myself, but to also benefit others. So that creates that stronger wish in yourself to actually continue practicing that and practicing more and more, right? Because you don't want to harm others. You don't want to be that person that actually do that for others. When we do eye for an eye, someone like criticize you and then you go like, like this. So that insight that you just had, wow, this is like gold, because then it helps me and it can help me to help others. So that is the perfect dedication that we can do, always dedicating this way. And then we just say, okay, and may I be able to accomplish, all of the issues that I have in the same way, so I can help others more and more and more and more and more and more. So that is the idea. Okay. So everything that we talked, everything that we insights and benefits that we have, we share with others. We don't also make it about me. Oh yes, now I am, and I can kind of like allow people to just continue suffering. No, no, no. May I be able to help others. So that is the idea. And then we dedicate, because we would not be able to be here. And not only this, let me just go to another type of dedication that I like is that, okay, so may I continue to develop this mind, of this insight more and more, so this mind can become stable in my mind, right? And then I can be free from coming from these blah 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 teachings with Cowden. So you can do it like this. Because if you have this stable mind, you don't need to listen to this blah blah blah. You can actually share already with others. You have the insight for yourself. It's stable in your mind. So we try to also aspire to stabilize that mind. So that's very important. And then we also dedicate that everything that is this is our contribution for a more peaceful and loving and kind world. Because if we are doing that, we are actually not reacting, not creating suffering, not creating conflict, not creating wars or any of these. So that is our contribution, and we dedicate that others can achieve that same mindset, so the world can have peace and less conflict and all of that. Does it make sense, that dedication as well? Very important, no? That we can dedicate like this. And of course, nothing, we would not be able to do that, to have those insights and to develop those insights, if we would not have someone, like our precious teachers, like the Dalai Lama, like Lama Zopa Rinpoche, our real gurus and teachers that have walked the path, that have studied, that have contemplated, that have meditated, that have developed that wisdom, developed those methods, so we could learn all of these. Okay, so we dedicate for their long and healthy lives, and especially for Rinpoche, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, to have to come back and to continue helping and inspiring and guiding us. Okay. And of course, we dedicate as well, because even if we would have those teachings, but if we don't have a space where we can learn, where we can, share, contemplate, all of that, so we dedicate for, Thubten Kungaling and centers like Thubten Kungaling to always have the necessary resources, the necessary conditions to continue existing in the world. Okay? So we're dedicating this way. And then we're going to do just one brief, very brief, so you guys can like have it dedication prayers. Okay? If I can find it. Oh, yeah, here. So again, when we do dedication prayers, what we are doing is we are actually doing not for asking someone to do it, but for ourselves, okay? To inspire ourselves to dedicate in this way. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, Guru Buddha, and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel, bodhicitta, that has not arisen, arise and grow, and they which has arisen, like the insight you guys just had it, not diminish but increase more and more. And then we dedicate for the long life of His Holiness, which is this incredible human being, in this world. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. O powerful Chenrezig, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. And then we do the dedication for Rinpoche to come back, which was written by His Holiness. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pradiyaka Buddhas, victorious Losam father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you wear the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and from other living beings you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta, of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly be in glory for fortunate disciples. So as we